On this episode of the EverQuest Show, Gnome Memorial Mountain. Will it have gnomes? Is it a memorial? Is it even a mountain? We discuss. And if you're looking for your EQ fix out of game, we're going to break down EverQuest novels and comics. And part one of our story of a player who's overcome so much and says EverQuest and its players saved her life.
Celebrate life and get excited about good times and good living. Come on, shout it out. Hey, take it up, take it over, take it out of control. Today I'm bringing my soul and now you got me singing.
Welcome to the EverQuest Show, Episode 2. We're bringing you player stories, news, and updates from the EverQuest franchise. I'm Kit from Agnar. You may also know me as Fading from Tenaire. Want to give a big shout out to everyone who liked, shared, or commented on our first episode. We appreciate that. While you're here, make sure you click the subscribe button. But as always, we start with news. We have an update on our EverQuest progression servers, Mangler and Selo, that are expected to launch on the 20th anniversary. As promised, the development team listened to the feedback from the players regarding the Mangler and Selo servers, and they made these adjustments. First, really it's language alone. Instead of calling Selo Ultra Casual, it's being rebranded as Fast Progression. And Mangler, it's dropped the Hardcore label altogether for a standard progression server. Overall, the rule set for Selo remains essentially unchanged, faster experience, and the server will start in the Lucklin era. Mangler's the one that's been reworked slightly, and they've made these adjustments. The slower experience rate and increased experience penalty on death, that's been scrapped for standard rates like Ragefire or Lockjaw have. Mangler is still going to start in Classic, and expansions are still going to unlock every 8 to 12 weeks, depending on the expansion. And speaking of progression servers, EverQuest II, it's going to launch its own new servers on the anniversary of EverQuest. Nagafen and Kaladim, those are the two servers. The Nagafen server had been announced in early February as a PvP seasonal server, and Kaladim will be a time-locked progression server. It will move through all of the EverQuest II content, unlocking expansions every 16 weeks, and it's also going to bring back the hoods and villages. Now all of these servers, Selo, Mangler, Kaladim, and Nagafen, easy for me to say, those are all going to launch on the 20th anniversary. That's March 16th, but you knew that. In a follow-up to the anniversary events mentioned in our last show, EQ has announced Gnome Memorial Mountain. The devs promised a collection of stories meant to preserve the past, and it appears that this is it. The lore fits nicely with that of Catacastrum and Degmar Castle from the Darkened Sea expansions, and like the dwarves, the Kedge, and the Shissar, the gnomes were also transported in a domed habitat by the Combine Empire to the bottom of the sea long ago. Now the habitat has risen to the surface. Unfortunately, all the gnomes have died. They were killed by orcs. Luckily though, the Clockwork Servants, they have survived. They've preserved this as a museum. And of course, as visitors arrive, you can bet they're going to offer you quests. It's EverQuest, it's in the name, you know what's going to happen. Now, if you're looking to beef up your EQ collection, or maybe you're just a big fan of fiction, you have several options when it comes to books and comics outside of the game. Now, there are the collection of D20 guides and manuals for the EverQuest pen and paper version. I'm not going to cover those today. I'm more talking about fiction, full stories in either comic book version or in novels. One was produced in hardcover, and that's The Rogue's Hour. To be honest, it's not a bad read, although not my favorite of the entire series. There are 3 paperback novels, Truth and Steel, The Blood Red Harp, and in my opinion, the best of the series, and that's The Ocean of Tears. This book is going to come with a great deal of original game lore, places that you're going to recognize, and NPCs you'll find in the game. Now, when it comes to comic books, there are essentially 2 to choose from, although we'll get into the third in just a moment. EverQuest Transformation, it's full of dark elves and ogres. It's beautifully illustrated, though I'll admit I'm not a fan of the style of the elf ears. It just doesn't match the game. Now, Ruins of Kunark, this is an amazing comic book. It's got artwork by Jim Lee. It features very memorable characters that rose to prominence in some of the expansions you'll know, like House of Thule and the Darkened Sea. Characters like Firiona V, Thuber Axbringer, Al-Kabor, Veneral Sather, and many more. Now, there are a couple of other lesser-known comic books. EverQuest Accounting is one. It's a smaller version, but it kind of recounts a noob's tale. It even includes Lockjaw and some specters and Oasis. This comic came inside the EverQuest Gold Edition 10, so if you picked that up, you probably have a copy of this in there as well. Most of the comic books or the novels, you can pick these up on eBay or Amazon. They usually go pretty cheap, although prices have been rising. Or if you're a treasure hunter, go by your local used bookstore. You can usually find some of the old RPG versions or the novels for very cheap, $3 to $5, or if you have any conventions going through, usually those have booksellers that have collections of these that you can also find at a pretty good deal. Good luck. It's just a game. I'd heard that before, and I'm sure many of you have as well, but in positive ways, video games and the community can offer so much more. I'd heard a story of an incredible player that I wanted to meet. So I hit the road to Ohio to meet this player in real life.
And now we have Veturika, a cleric of EverQuest.
I am Veturika Glimmerdon, and I play a cleric. Was a paramedic and firefighter for years. I loved it. I would stop at accidents if I was out somewhere because I want to help people. I wanted to be a doctor. I got really, really sick, and he created Veturika and said, this is the only thing I know that I can give you. I was really happy because I could still help people. I couldn't do it anymore in the real world, but I could do it in this world. I'm a serious gamer. If you're a cleric, you better do your job, because I get very upset if a cleric doesn't do her job. Boring. Made me do baking and blacksmithing and all those skills. He said I had to get them to 100. I'm like, this is no fun. I had to bake. I don't like to bake in real life, let alone on the game. But that's what I did. And he said my job now was to make sure he didn't die. And of course he pulled and he died. And I died. I said, this game's not fun. I'm dying a lot. He just stood up and said, you let me die? And I didn't know. Complete heals back in those days took forever. I love the game, and I've really gotten into it because there's not a whole lot I could do back when I was first diagnosed. I didn't leave the house for weeks at a time. My love was my game. Started out with a headache on the left side, and all of a sudden, driving down Route 8, my arm dropped. I was horrified. I couldn't move my arm. I couldn't move my left side. It was like I didn't know what happened. It was on a phone call. And they said, my aunt had died with MS. And they called and said, got some bad news for you. And I'm like, okay, why the headache? And my arm. And he said, you've got MS. Well, at that time, August 5th, 1999, I had no clue what this could do to me. Multiple sclerosis. It's very painful. Some people are lucky they don't have the pain. Me, I've got the pain. It's so intense. Think of a Charlie horse in your leg. That's what I feel in my whole body and your brain. And you have scar tissue. And it keeps the electrical, like say I want to move my hand, and it'll keep me from moving my hand. It won't let the message get through. The pain is so bad that you wished you were dead. It felt so bad I couldn't. The pain was unbearable. And there was nothing they could give me, nothing they could do. A prognosis, I'm going to die. I probably would have laid here and died. I would have given up. The game gave me hope and freedom that I didn't have in my real life. And had I not had the people in there in EverQuest there for me, I would have given up and died. I would have just let go. The doctor said 2 to 5 years. I would have let him. He'd have been right. It's my life. You kids are grown, you know. Now it's who I am. You know, when you say Veturika, that's who I am. I don't want to be thought of as this crippled person that can't function. Veturika can do anything, and that's how I want to feel. That's what I do. I just put myself in her, and I can do anything. But all my grandkids play, because in the game they can see Nana with no pain. I can run, I can swim, I can do things where they don't have to see Nana laying here hurting. They don't have to see that part of me. I am. I want them to keep her with the good reputation and love that I have built with her. I want them to understand that's a part of me that they have. And I help people. And I want her to continue somehow to keep helping others. That scares me about dying. Leaving her. Leaving the people who have brought me to this point in my life and kept me going.
Veturika had such a story to tell, I couldn't put it all into one episode. I hope you'll tune into the next episode for the second half of her story, going to SOE Live and meeting some amazing players. Thank you so much for watching. As always, please go to the comments section or click subscribe as well so you'll know when the next episode is uploaded. Thanks for watching.